I'm talking about the solar festival of Gemini. And just to clarify it, oftentimes people will get a bit agitated and they'll send me an email and say, you don't understand. This is not the full moon of such and such. Well, it is. The sun is in Gemini. The moon is in Sagittarius. So we say it's the full moon of Gemini. That little preposition is what's so important. So I've decided to make it a little bit more clear in my blogs and the Zodiac newsletter and so forth. So I'm bringing in the polarity of the signs. So let's say that we're celebrating the solar festival of the Gemini Sagittarius axis. How's that? Okay. Okay. So let us begin. Every constellation, every sign has a keynote according to esoteric astrology. A keynote is like a composer that creates a symphony or just a little piece of music. They always have a theme which is based around a particular note or a scale. And so with when we say that Gemini or Taurus or whatever has a keynote, it means that there's a theme that runs through all the energies and rays of that particular sign or constellation. This keynote can be like a seed thought. A seed thought we can particularly use during the 7-day period of the full moon. So the keynote, we have two keynotes. One is for the unawakened individual, and then we have one for the awakened individual. Another way to say it is there's a keynote for the personality and a keynote for the soul. And of course, we all think that we're awakened, and therefore the keynote of the personality is not, does not pertain to us. But what I like to do is to see how the effect of both of these keynotes seem to function in our lives, function in the life of humanity, and so forth. So I always like to bring in both of the keynotes. So the keynote for the personality is let instability do its work. And then the keynote for the awakened person is I recognize my other self. That's the capital S self. That's the greater part of ourselves. I recognize my other self. And in the waning of the self, that waning of the self is the little s. That means that the personality is beginning to calm down. The ego is no longer trying to take charge over everybody's life, especially one's own. It's starting to subdue itself a bit and letting the greater self come in. So again, it's I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. I grow and glow. So this is what we are trying to do, is to grow and glow. Now, I mean, there's nothing esoteric about that, Grow means we're trying to evolve, trying to become more wise, trying to live more of the potential, let's say the God-given potential of who we are. And to glow means that we're going to radiate that beauty, radiate that potential in all that we do. And the other side, the keynote for the personality, let instability do its work. What is instability? It's every time we fall down. We fall down because we're not stable in our principles, not stable in our value system, not stable in our sense of direction. And so when instability takes place, we fall down, which means we experience failure, we make wrong choices, we have situations in our life that say, wake up, pay attention. Why did this happen? Why did you make that choice? What was your motivation behind that choice? What was your intent? Because something was off. And that something that is off means that we were out of contact with that higher self, with that purpose of our incarnation. Okay, so those are the two keynotes. The exact time of this full moon is tomorrow, Monday, June 20th, at 5:03 a.m. Now that's Mountain Standard Time. And let me take a moment now to tell you that if you want to learn more about this Gemini full moon, you can read the Zodiac newsletter, which is full of information. A lot more information than I'm sharing this morning. You can subscribe to that. It's all free. You can go to the White Mountain website, and there's a little place you go in and click, and it lets you register for the Zodiac newsletter, and then you'll get it every month. So this particular month, I've actually extracted information from the Zodiac newsletter that I'm sharing this morning. Just because I won't go any further in that. Geminis have a great sense of humor. You may have noticed that a bit. But if you don't know about Gemini, now you do. Geminis have a good sense of humor. Anyway, so I also tend to ramble, and that's a Gemini trait. So I'll try to be more succinct this morning. Anyway, so some of this talk this morning was excerpted from what I wrote in the Zodiac newsletter. So let me begin with this. It's a little information. The Gemini, of course, is one of the constellations in the Zodiac. It was one of 48 constellations described by the 2nd century astronomer Ptolemy. But it stayed in play, and now it's one of 88 constellations, modern constellations. What I found really fascinating in my studies or research is that the word Gemini is a Latin term for twins. Isn't that interesting? I thought that was so clever. Anyway, and it is associated with the twins Castor and Pollux in Greek mythology. What is very powerful with this particular full moon is that it is the 2nd full moon of Gemini. When we have 2 moons of the same sign, like last month and this month, both in Gemini, we double the energy and double the impact of the energy. That double the impact means it's just twice as powerful as a typical full moon that occurs only one time. So we are going to have more experience dealing with the energies of Gemini, but there's even something a little bit more significant, which I've written about for years and years and years. And that is anytime we have a second full moon that is in the same sign, we are actually experiencing the sidereal position of the sun. It's the literal position. It's the literal movement. The sun is literally going through the constellation of Gemini. Normally, we're still celebrating the old thought form of any of the full moons. In this case, though, the sun in Gemini. Normally, when there's only one full moon experience in that sign, we're really experiencing the sun in Taurus. It's very, this is the first time you've heard about it, good, because now you're going to, pay attention and maybe do some research on the difference between true, positioning of the planets and the signs and the sun versus the old thought form. But understand that because that old thought form is so powerful, then the old ideas of Gemini, or the old ideas of Taurus, or the old ideas of Aries are still significant, because that's where our consciousness is. It's still buried in the past. So when we have, and we're experiencing these two full moons, both being in Gemini, now it's like our cage is being rattled and it's saying, get out of the past, start anew, pay attention to these powerful energies that Gemini has to offer. And essentially, there's a lot of qualities that Gemini has to offer, but the most essential has to do with the heart. So, purification of the heart. We've been talking about this for a while in the group here, about the necessity of the purification of the heart. The reason for that is that the constellation of Gemini is heart-oriented. It is related to the second aspect of the sun, and thus love, wisdom, thus the heart. So the energies of this full moon will have a wide-reaching effect upon the souls of humanity. What are soul qualities? The answer can be found in our soul keynote. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. We can take this keynote into our meditation, like I mentioned, today and tomorrow, or that whole 7-day period. But if you are a Gemini, this is going to be kind of the keynote of your life. We have certain virtues that relate to the sign that your sun was in when you were born. But this keynote is like you were born with this keynote, in your heart, whether it's the keynote of your personality or the keynote of your soul. So it's a constant sounding of a particular note, that when your soul and your personality are aligned to this keynote, then you are really in the flow of the purpose of why you were born when the sun was in that particular sign. As of May and June of this year, 2016, we have experienced 2 consecutive Gemini full moons. The first took place last month in May in Gemini at 1 degree 13 minutes. I'm giving you just a little bit of, the science of it. This month in June, it remains in Gemini. It's actually in that constellation of Gemini at 29 degrees and 32 minutes, which takes place tomorrow. You can learn more about what these degrees mean if you go to the Zodiac newsletter and read it. The zodiacal cycle of the sun moves into the sign and constellation of Gemini. When it does, there's a natural energy burst. Just think of this, a natural energy burst. It's been building up for a few days, and tomorrow it will reach its crescendo point, allowing everyone, and particularly those that are in contact with this energy, to make inner changes. Now, we all know that it's a rare occurrence that there is a sudden shift. I'm not saying it can't happen, because it can. But what I'm saying is, take a look at your life over the last 3 days. After the last 3 days, what shifts are happening in your thinking, in your reactions, in your actions? Have you seen a shift taking place? That shift will become very noticeable, very predominant tomorrow morning about 5 o'clock. I think the actual time is 5:03 in the morning, Mountain Standard Time. Okay. Interchange. This means from that point forward, from the point forward of the actual time tomorrow morning, you're going to gradually see you're thinking different. You're seeing things from a different point of view. It's like your filter system is becoming unclogged, and colors become brighter. Your intellect is less clogged. Your wisdom is more predominant than your concrete thinking. So you're taking a step forward, and that's what tomorrow has a potential of bringing us. And the reason being, in the overall look at this, is at that first full moon last month, on the 21st of May, last month of the 21st of May, was the beginning of this. See, the beginning of this surge of energy. And so you might have found yourself a bit uncomfortable. You might have picked up the flu, you thought it was the flu, a cold, or a headache, or you were just out of sorts. What is actually happening is that hierarchical energy is coming in, and it is striking your soul note, and you're reacting. Your physical, emotional, mental structure, what we call your atomic structure, is being rattled. And being rattled means that little solar friction is taking place. And so it's an opportunity to say, wait a minute, what's happening? I don't feel well. What's the cause? Well, the teaching is giving us the cause. Don't worry about the flu. Don't worry about the headache. Don't worry about feeling a little off. Be aware that opportunity is knocking on your door. Pay attention, observe. Let your inner guidance, let the light of your solar angel guide you and direct you as to what this next step in your life is going to be. Those on the path of conscious evolution will take advantage of this time period, use their time to appraise their life, make changes, then review what? We're going to review the nature, the quality of our heart. And as we make adjustments, then we're going to move upward and take this next turn of the spiral. Now, Saturn, the planet Saturn, is in retrograde. This means that time now seems to have slowed down a bit so that we can actually observe and recognize and experience those situations that are taking place in our life without letting them pass us by unrecognized. So while the Saturn is in retrograde motion, things slow down and oftentimes influence delays. Gemini is predominantly the sign of the intellect, and it has a peculiarly vital, I can't say, I've never been able to say that word, I'm sorry. Peculiarly vital effect at present. At this time in history, the mind faculty and the intellect have been steadily developed. So we're talking about the overall, influence of Gemini on the history of humanity. So Gemini, therefore, has influence in 3 departments which concern themselves with human relations. But essentially, Gemini governs education. It deals with knowledge, it deals with the sciences, and it deals with the foundation of wisdom. So those are the three elements that are very dominant with Gemini. One educator has said, and I quote, "The ultimate purpose of education is the acquiring of knowledge in order to receive the higher revelation. The unintelligent may receive it, but they cannot interpret it." It sort of reminded me of Agni Yoga. You know, if you pick up the books of Agni Yoga, you know, these books are very available. You can also read them online now at agniyoga.org. All the books are online. You can download them or just read them. But reading them doesn't mean that you understand it. Reading the words doesn't mean that you're interpreting it right. So, typically of the wisdom teaching, they tell us how to get it right. Like with Agni Yoga, it said, read a verse in the morning, then read the same verse at noon, and then again before you retire at night, read that same verse. You'll be amazed at your point of view, how it switches from morning till noon to night, and you begin to see, it's almost like at least for me, it's like a little revelation. Wow, why didn't I see that this morning? Or this noon? Mercury. Mercury is the exoteric ruler of Gemini. Mercury in the outer world signifies what? Schools, colleges, and all places where teaching and learning goes on. Scientific and literary institutions. In consciousness, Gemini signifies thought, understanding, reason, intelligence, intellect. The abstract levels, oftentimes, rather than the concrete, and the lower nature of Mercury is where people just collect knowledge just for the sake of knowledge. They don't do anything with it. But in its highest application, the influence of Mercury seems to be what is called pure reason. So you can take some of these, words, associate them with the nature of Gemini, but the underlying point of Mercury is to influence pure reason. With our physical body, it governs the brain and the nervous system, the tongue and the organs of speech, and the hands as instruments of intelligence. This is all Mercury. And since Mercury is the exoteric ruler of Gemini, then the two go hand in hand. Venus is, did you get that? Hand in hand. It just, okay. Venus is the esoteric ruler of Gemini and rules the second decadent of Gemini. Now I'm giving this to esoteric astrologers to remind them, and if you're not an esoteric astrologer, then just make your notes, and think about it. So Venus is the esoteric ruler, and it governs the second decadent of Gemini, which is 10 to 20 degrees of that sign. Venus has a quality of at-one-ment. And through its influence, the law of attraction, and the bringing together of polar opposites in place. Now, we're talking Venus and Mercury and Gemini, all these influences. See, this is not your newspaper, Gemini interpretation. This is the esoteric scientific approach. But all these changes and unifications that Venus makes naturally inaugurates a new awareness, like a new state of being, and brings in new light. It's like a new world. It's like you were this yesterday and today and tomorrow. I'm a new person. I'm a new being because my filter system has been cleaned up a little bit. And I'm not what I was last week or 10 years ago. Now, consequently, new difficulties and problems arise. And this is because of Saturn. Saturn governs the last decade of Gemini, which is the 20 to 30 degree section of Gemini. Saturn is the planet of discipleship. So we want these difficulties. We want these problems. Otherwise, we would be couch potatoes. Nothing would change. So Saturn, this is important to remember, anytime in your chart that you have major Saturn cycles, this is the opportunity for you as a disciple to take the next step ahead, to pay off some karma and so forth. So problems and tests are given to you to offer us as a disciple, immediate opportunities. See, we don't have to wait 10 more incarnations. It is Saturn that opens the door into incarnation, interestingly enough, and Saturn that opens the door to the path of initiation. So if you are to take a major initiation in this incarnation, somewhere in your horoscope, Saturn will be very predominant. Will have a predominant influence, or Capricorn. Mercury, the interpreter, and the illuminating intellect, Venus, the principle of attraction and of at-one-ment, and Saturn, the generator of opportunity. This is Gemini, see? The influence of Gemini. So when you recognize every month, that there's so much going on esoterically, scientifically, energetically speaking, that it's bombarding all of humanity, but it is like, it's like a strong focal point for every disciple to take a magnified look, at your personal life, first of all, then your service life, secondly, and perhaps more importantly, of what you can do different, how you can expand, undergo the process of transformation, ultimately transfiguration. Okay, so now I'm going to move into talk about the nature of the heart, which is easier psychologically to understand. But I wanted to give a little background about the significance of, in this case, Gemini, the significance of the fact it's the second full moon, in Gemini, and the planets involved, exoteric and esoteric, and the impact this second full moon has upon our soul. So, the heart. During the days of this Gemini Sagittarian full moon, try to spend some quality time concentrating on your heart, the nature of your heart, the qualities of your heart. If you don't know what that means, Torkim Saradarian has written a book on the flame of the heart, and right in the first part of that book, he's written about the 12 virtues of the heart. The Tibetan master DK has also written about the 12 qualities or virtues of the heart. Go into esoteric astrology or esoteric psychology by the Tibetan. But the easiest reading, particularly as an introduction, is to read that chapter in Torkim's book on the chapter about From the Flame of the Heart. We can take advantage of this cycle by using the time to appraise our life, make changes, review the nature of our heart, and move upward to the next turn of the spiral of our life. A great sage says this, and it's from the book Heart, verse 339. Verily, anyone who wishes to cognize the heart cannot approach it as only a part of the organism. In other words, to understand it, to recognize what is the purpose of the heart other than the, keeping us alive. There's more to it than that. And the Great One says, first of all, one should recognize this centrifugal aspect of the heart and study outward from it and not inward toward it. He also says this, the solar plexus is the antechamber of the temple of the heart. The Kundalini is the laboratory of the heart. So the solar plexus is the antechamber of the temple of the heart. That means it's the lower aspect. The Kundalini is the laboratory of the heart. The human brain and all the centers are the estates of the heart, he says, because nothing can exist without the heart. The heart stands then as a temple of humanity. Now, just as a side note, people revere the intellect and they consider a heart-natured person as weak. We know in the teaching, power comes from the balance of the intellect and the heart. You can't be intellectual heavy or so-called heart heavy because there's your imbalance. So as disciples of the teaching, as students of the teaching, as practitioners of the teaching, we don't want to be all intellect or all heart. We want the balance. And there is the power. What does the Great One mean when he says we should recognize the centrifugal aspect of the heart and study outward from it? It means moving outward from a center point, outward from the central point. I believe he is telling us that we should first try to discover the central flame of our heart. It is this flame, when adequately ignited, will put us in contact with the rhythm of the cosmic heart. Excuse me. The cosmic heart is the centrifugal aspect of the heart. The cosmic heart nourishes each atom. The cosmic heart nourishes each atom, each cell, and each living form on all levels. Now try to concentrate on this. I know if it's new, your brain just goes, and that means, okay, I can rest. So, this is why it's good to take notes, so that you have to stay awake. Okay, so the cosmic heart nourishes each atom, each cell, each living form on all planes, and we are one of those forms. The cosmic heart, along with the flame in our own heart, will communicate. How do we communicate with that cosmic heart? Do you know? Anybody? Sure, meditation is one way, but there's got to be something in that, which is magnetic attraction. Magnetic attraction is our form of communication between our heart and the cosmic heart. It means exchanging harmonious energy. That's magnetic attraction, harmonious energy, vision, and inspiration. This action results in health, vision, and creativity. So this nourishing action creates a path for us to travel, a path called the path of the Spirit, the spiritual path. We are traveling to the center, then we are traveling to the center of this cosmic heart. Imagine. You really think about it. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, if we are on this spiritual path, then we are traveling to the center of the cosmic heart. The heart transmits from its center love and beauty, power, goodness, and truth. So you take these 5 elements, love, beauty, power, goodness, and truth. The more of these 5 elements that are in your life expression, in your relationships, signifies how close or how distant you are to or from the cosmic heart. Love, beauty, power, goodness, and truth. These transmissions nourish the fire, the flame that is within our heart. When we talk about people who have strong hearts, we are talking about people whose heart centers are vital and nourished by the cosmic heart. See, there's no pretending. You can't take a course in acting. This is a natural process. You can't pretend to love. You can't pretend to be beautiful. You can't pretend to be truthful and good and powerful and so forth. Your heart center must be nourished by the cosmic heart to be these things. And that makes you a strong-hearted person. But when enemies daily attack you, attack your heart, enemies such as revenge and anger and slander and hatred and dishonesty and jealousy and greed, then we are cutting ourselves off from the radiation of that great cosmic heart, the one life. This means we are cut from the teachings, that we are cut from the teachings of the great ones, from the beauty of Christ and Buddha and other messengers of the heart. We reject their teachings by becoming hypocrites. We mask ourselves in the words of the teachings, but find that our actions go against all that they gave us or gave to us to be and to live. The great ones need strong hearts within the ashramic communities to carry their message into humanity, to heal the heart of humanity, to heal the heart of the family, the group, the nation, and the world. Those who have strong hearts are those whose heart centers are open. When the heart center in the head is awake, for example, we can transmit the life, we can transmit the life electricity of that great cosmic heart. How can you recognize people who have strong hearts? It's very simple. They are unifiers. Plain and simple. They are unifiers. They are also the protectors of the family, the group, the nation, and humanity. They are refined, they are tender, loving, and compassionate. Does that ring a bell about who isn't? Truly. And it's not to judge, it is to recognize. That's it. And who do we align ourselves with? People who have strong hearts, who are unifiers, who are protectors of the family and the nation. And most especially those with strong hearts practice harmlessness. We are told by the Great One that the solar plexus is the antechamber of the heart. What does this mean? The solar plexus is the lower heart. The lower heart is related to all negative emotions. The lower heart must be purified by the higher heart. So during these powerful days of Gemini, we can use the energies of the festival, the solar festival, to purify the solar plexus, the lower heart. The higher heart is the chalice, the contact point. The chalice is the higher heart. It is the contact point of the cosmic heart. And it is also the source of all virtues. When you fuse the lower heart with the higher heart, you turn into a source of tenderness, harmlessness, and sensitivity. Heartless people are repelled by the teaching. What happens to heartless people is this: their heart center dries up. The petals of the heart become petrified, and their heart becomes like a rock. Their actions of thought and mind and deed work against unity and love. You must stay away from heartless people, for in time their nature can poison your heart. To build right human relations means to think of others first, to put others in first place. People do not have to learn how to put themselves first. That's instinct. People do not have to learn how to put themselves first, but rather how to put others first. By honoring and respecting the divinity in another, you are building a bridge between your own divinity and that in the other. This is right relations, right human relations. This is love wisdom. This is drawing upon the light, love, and power of the Christ. When your heart is full of love and your head is full of wisdom, see the balance? Nothing then is ever done that can cause harm to others in the long run. If you are wise and loving, you can do anything, and the effects will be harmless and good.